When a statue is removed, what takes its place? Is it replaced or left empty? Hi, my name's Bethany Belisle, and this is The Statues Will Cry Out. Previously, we've discussed why a statue is removed. But removal isn't the end of the story, because once a statue is taken down, a new question emerges. What replaces it? To answer that, we'll look at three things. First, what happens to spaces once the statue is removed, the different ways societies respond, and why replacement is often just as controversial as the removal. When a statue is removed, it leaves something behind, an empty space, and that space matters. The absence of the monument serves as a vacancy sign in the public square, embodying an inherent openness and intermediacy of democracy. As philosopher Claude Lefort describes it, an empty space that no single authority can permanently occupy. The space where a statue once stood becomes a symbolic placeholder for the values a community has chosen to reject. On June 13, 2020, the Cherokee Nation removed two Confederate monuments from its capital square in Toluca, Oklahoma. These markers, a fountain dedicated in 1913 and a 3,000-pound granite slab from 1921, were originally placed by the Daughters of the Confederacy during a time when the tribe did not own property. Principal Chief Chuck Houskin Jr. describes the removal as an act of reclaiming the tribal narrative, stating that the days of the Cherokee leaving it to others to tell our story is over. The space left behind signifies a rejection of painful references that fail to reflect Cherokee values of unity and inclusion. This vacancy marks the beginning of a new chapter, where the tribe exercises full control over the square's symbolic landscape. Instead of glorifying the Confederacy, the nation plans to use this area for future art projects, including a monument dedicated to the Trail of Tears, ensuring that the public square finally reflects the endurance and perspective of the Cherokee people. Statues often operate on the edge of awareness as anchors that stabilize the physical and cognitive landscape. They serve as spatial coordinates of identity, and when a figure who has become part of the scenery suddenly vanishes, it can disorient and bewilder the community. The meaning of the empty space shifts depending on the voice of the viewer. For those who have identified with the removed figure, the empty space can feel like a formal or public retribution of their cultural or political traditions. Leaving a pedestal empty creates a state of memorial suspension. It explicitly signals a rejection. We rejected what was here. However, when a community fails to agree on a replacement, the empty space signals a lack of consciousness. This makes the landscape feel cluttered with the decisions of the past, even in their absence. Leaving just the pedestal creates a form of negative space that makes the site unusable for its original celebratory or dietic function. The Robert E. Lee Monument in Richmond, Virginia serves as a primary example of this memorial suspension. While the statue's removal was celebrated by many as a victory for historical truth and decency, a group of local residents filed lawsuits to halt the removal, citing concerns over property values. This conflict transformed the site into a living monument, with the pedestal, even before the statue's removal, reclaimed by the community. The space, originally designed to celebrate lost cause mythology and reassert white dominance, became a theater for protests covered in graffiti ranging from "fuck white supremacy" to "love." This negative space now functions as an invitation to grapple with the history's darkness, including the displacement of Powhatan people and the legacy of slavery, making the site unusable for its original celebratory intent. Empty space does not end the debate, it keeps it open. So, what do societies actually do with these spaces? The choice of what, if anything, fills that gap, sends a profound message about how a community navigates its relationship with the past. In many cases, the most straightforward outcome is the installation of a new statue representing different values. This process often serves as a form of corrective justice, signaling a new message for a new moment. After the removal of the Robert E. Lee statue from the U.S. National Sanctuary Hall, a state commission recommended replacing it with a statue of Barbara Johns, who led a 1951 school strike for equal education. In Winnipeg, a highly controversial and protested statue of Louis Ryle, which was tortured, nude, and distorted, was removed and eventually replaced with a more romanticized version that aligned more closely with contemporary views of his legacy. Statues of George Floyd were unveiled to honor his life and amplify calls for racial justice in the very spaces once dominated by colonial and white supremacist momentality. Instead of a total replacement, some communities choose to reinterpret the history by adding context. This often involves either using plaques or relocating the original statue to a museum. The toppled Edward Colston statue in Bristol was recovered from the harbor and displayed horizontally in the Shed Museum, with its protest graffiti and ropes still intact to tell the story of the demonstration itself. In South Africa, a monument that was originally a symbol of apartheid has been recontextualized by being connected to Freedom Park via a reconciliation road. Some spaces become flexible, utilizing installations or community art to reflect multiple evolving voices over time. In London, the fourth plinth has become a global model for rotating temporary artworks, ensuring that the square's symbolic landscapes remain dynamic rather than frozen. In Montreal, following the toppling of the John A. Macdonald statue, an After McDonald group was formed specifically to encourage reflection on how the space might be repurposed through temporary installations. And sometimes, nothing replaces the statue at all. At Duke University Chapel, the removal of a Robert E. Lee statue left an empty niche at the entrance. This gap was intentionally maintained to express the university's deep and abiding values following the rejection of the figure's legacy. Each choice sends a different message about how a society deals with the past. If deciding to remove a statue is political, deciding what replaces it might be even more so. Societies often seek to replace removed icons with figures from minority groups whose history was previously suppressed or misrepresented by the original monument. Replacing a tainted commemoration with a new figure serves as a form of corrective justice, signaling that those previously marginalized now matter to the state. Even when a replacement is intended to be inclusive, it can spark new debates over who is still being left out or if the new representation is offensive. A central challenge is creating a unity composed of difference rather than one imposed upon it, which risks creating new forms of social friction. If a replacement represents only a fraction of the community or uses a style that's seen as over aestheticizing a tragedy, it can be perceived as symbolic violence against those it's intended to honor. Replacement debates often center on ontic justice, where the choice of a new figure creates a social category that continues to wrongfully constrain the self understanding of certain citizens. A major point of contention is who gets to decide what fills the space, the government or the local community. Public history movements advocate for shared authority, where historians and officials collaborate with citizens to interpret the past. Groups use strategic communication to frame the replacement in a way that controls the narrative. The meaning of a replacement is never fixed. It is a symbolic negotiation between different powers and groups that fluctuates with the political climate. Advocates for a specific figure may engage in admiration bombing, highlighting only the subject's good qualities to bypass or silence legitimate criticisms of their flaws. Replacement debates aren't just about the future, they're about correcting or redefining the past. The process can be regenerative, attempting to repair the wounds caused by centuries of repressive erasure in the landscape. By placing new figures in old spaces, societies create a dialogue relationship between history and the present, forcing viewers to reconsider their national history. So, what did we learn? When a statue comes down, the story doesn't end, it shifts. Empty spaces communicate meaning, replacements reflect new values, and every decision about what comes next is a part of the ongoing political conversation. Here's our next question: should we replace statues or leave some spaces empty? Next time, we'll look how reinstallation of statues is an attempt to reassert contested meanings, identities, and power after removals.